Hey, it's Aaron, Metal Theologian. So I know when I gave that record room tour a while back, I had an obvious section. I still do have an obvious section, and some people thought that was kind of funny. I mean, honestly, I think it's kind of funny too. But there were one or two people who totally got it. It's just like these are the bands you sort of you take for granted. When I'm flipping through here, wanting to find something that I'm not thinking about, I don't want to find a Judas Priest record. Actually, that's a bad example because they're over in the metal. But I don't want to find eight Blue Oyster Cult records. If I want to listen to Blue Oyster Cult, I know I want to listen to Blue Oyster Cult. I'm not digging around, So even though it's kind of the obvious stuff and sort of the canon, I guess, if you want, for the most part. I mean, there's some shit that's sort of canon that's not in the obvious section because I got into it later or whatever. But that's kind of a big rabbit hole we don't need to go down. Anyway, I go in there and I, drink pretty deeply of the obvious section sometimes. Actually, I don't have the records out right now. But when we were driving home from Hartford the last time we were up there, it was like the middle of the night. We were just got to South Carolina. And I just had this huge hankering to want to listen to Black Sabbath. So I listened to like 3 Black Sabbath records in a row, So even now, But we were listening to this band, Saracen. It's actually Australia. They were called Trilogy. And then they sort of split up and got back together and changed their name to Saracen. But the label got pissed about that, so they have this same record got released under the Trilogy name, in France, I think. It only came out in Australia and France or something too. It's not like this was common shit. Anyway, it's pretty good stuff. But yeah, there's some pretty obvious stuff here, And the fact is, I really enjoy this stuff, I like to talk about sort of the obscure bands and championing the underdog and that kind of shit. And it definitely makes me happy there's a band that no one would have heard of otherwise that people start to sort of catch on to, But some of these big bands, they just stick with me forever. This is a great example. I just played this, in the last couple of days. This is probably my all-time favorite record, if I had to pick one. I've been thinking about this on and off for kind of a long time. Anytime I'm looking for heavy 70s records, I'm always kind of hoping it'll sound like this. And I can't think of another record that I still think is as great as I still think this one is after... I got this when I was 12, There's so many cool things about it, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's the sort of thing you can keep it... You'll never hear all of them, you'll hear something new every time. I don't know if that's quite true, but everything we hear is still so strong and so well put together and so well executed. It's just fucking great, man. Yeah, Deep Purple and Rock. #1 record. Yeah, and actually it reminds me of another one I wanted to show. This is actually my second copy of this record for some reason. Sometime in the 80s I got this. Well, actually I'll show this one first. This sort of leads into it. Yeah, so this is the first Deep Purple record I ever actually heard. I heard this at a friend's house. A friend of mine named Aurelio when I was living in Germany. I'm pretty sure I was 12. I might have been 13, but I'm 90% sure I was still 12. And he had this record, and we were listening to it, and it just blew my mind, right? I was just so amazed that a band could be this awesome. But looking at the back, it tells you where all the songs came from. And of the 8 songs on here, 3 of them are off Made in Japan, and they're all great, you know what I mean? It's like Smoke on the Water and shit, but I'd never even heard these songs before, right? So I was like, well shit, maybe the one to check out is really Made in Japan, if that's where all the best stuff on this record's coming from. And yeah, my friends hadn't done that because it was a 2 LP set, and the double was more expensive. So of course I was the one. This is the future record collector in the making, right? Here, this is where you sort of see the seeds of it starting to germinate. So I go, fuck that. I don't care if it's a great record, man. I'll spend a little more. So I'll spend, I spent 26 or 28 marks instead of 20 marks or whatever it was. And I got this one, Made in Japan. Now this isn't actually the same copy. I traded it or something, but I remember I didn't have it again. And so I had to re-buy it a couple years later. So this copy I've had since I was in high school, but this is the second copy. I don't remember why I traded away the first one I had. Anyway, I found this at Chris's Warped Records in Lakewood, Ohio. I went to Lakewood High, and we had open lunches at the time. So I would like walk over to the record store during lunch, then come back and like walk onto the records under my arm the rest of the day. So I got this for maybe like, I don't know, $6 or something. I don't know if they didn't notice or what the deal was, but this appears to be signed. It's just in ballpoint pen. So it doesn't, so you don't really see it if you're not looking for it. You know, you probably can't really see it there, but like right there, it's Roger Glover. There's Ian Gillan. That's Ian Pace right there. This one I can never make out, but I've seen John Lord's autograph, so I'm pretty sure it's Richie Blackmore. So everyone's on here except for John Lord, and of course he's the one who's dead, so that figures, right? But you know, it's a cool thing to sort of come across like that, just sort of really randomly, you know. You know, it's sort of like who's scribbling all over this fucking record cover with pen? Oh, wait a minute, Roger Glover. Okay, he's allowed, you know. I fired this one out too. This is a relatively recent one. I was, you know, still listening to Blue Oyster Cult, but this is a fun one to sort of check out. It's an unusual set, it seems like, on this one. Like, you don't see Workshop of the Telescopes in a lot of records from this era. And I would have expected to see ETI on here. But it's not. But, you know, Joan Crawford. A lot of stuff from the first couple of records, actually, too. Like, Harvester of Eyes I seem to play, but, like, Before the Kiss of Red Cap. Oh, and Born to Rock off that Buck Dharma solo record. Anyway, it's a pretty good set. You know, it's not as good as ETL, Extraterrestrial Live. That's a better record, but this is probably, I don't know, it's probably about the same as the earlier live record they did. But anyway, that's almost too obvious. I've been talking about them so much. Let's see what else we got here. Actually, it's funny, I pulled this out like a week ago. Well, a few days ago. I don't know, I hear people talking about it or something. It totally didn't scratch the itch. You know what I mean? It's a great record. But I was just not in the mood for that one that day. So let's see, I probably spent enough time talking about that. Well, shit, and here we go. Here's some stuff from the obvious section, right? Listen to this a few times this week. Yeah, I really think the song is perfect. Like, even the songs I'm not as crazy about, like, She's as Beautiful as a Foot, I think is a little bit goofy. But if you took it out, the record wouldn't be the same, you know? Yeah, Secret Treaties, another perfect record, you know? And this one was actually probably the one I spent the most time with, because of these first three, this is the one that I've kind of... It's been the toughest nut for me to crack, let's say. I mean, it's really good. I've always really liked it. But, like, some songs like Teen Archer and shit, Wings Wetted Down, didn't stay with me as much as some of the other ones, you know? Anyway, this record, I mean, I already liked it just fine, but I like it more and more every time I listen to it, so... Still an essential record as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, there's another one in here too. Oh, yeah, Agents of Fortune is in here too. Here's the other thing. Actually, I talk from time to time about wanting to give another chance again to records that I haven't liked for some reason. Usually it's some obscure band. It's like I'll talk about how I pull it out once a year to see if this time I like it, and if I don't, I'll put it away for another year. This record is kind of like that too, actually. Who Do We Think We Are by Deep Purple? Because this record is just so much weaker than the other three they did with Ian Gillan. I mean, not counting that concerto one, you know, because whatever. But the three that came before this were just absolute S tier, like 10 out of 10 godly records, right? Even Machine Head. Maybe you're sick of the big hits on it, but take a step back, or just even fucking listen to it again. It's really still that good, man. But this record I never got into in the same way, you know? And I probably liked it this time more than I've ever liked it before. You know, I'm starting to feel like they have I don't know, the songs have a little bit more identity. It feels a little best. I don't know. It just. It's hard to articulate. I want to say the hooks or, something, but there's just something about these songs that never grabbed me. And I think I'm starting to get it. I've heard that there are people out there who really like this record. So, I'm going to keep it in rotation from time to time and see if maybe I can't come around on it. Because, man, I would really like another Deep Purple record in my life. And yeah, I know there have been these reunion ones, but the reunion stuff, even when it's really good, it tends to feel to me like it's grasping at something that isn't there. Anyway, one other Deep Purple record, though, that I will stand up for here is actually this one. Okay, I mean, I think a lot of people would probably call this their worst record. Richie Blackmore isn't even on this. It's fucking Tommy Poland, right? But if you forget about the fact that it says Deep Purple on this, and just listen to it as like a heavy 70s record, it is fantastic. The only thing wrong with this record is that the Deep Purple name sets too high an expectation. Because no, this isn't Deep Purple in rock. You know what I mean? It doesn't even sound as Deep Purple-ish as like Burn, It's already a pretty significant stylistic shift there, right? But it's not even like on that level. This is just sort of its own thing. So just pretend that like this is a private pressing you just spent $150 on, and you're gonna put it on, and you know David Coverdale is a good singer, If you just go in and that's all you go in with, you're gonna love this record, man. It's fantastic. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's a really fun record, man. And I play this more than a lot of records, believe it or not. So I probably play this more often than I play the Horse record. I probably play that record more often than I play the Leaf Hound record. Alright, so I was listening to Live After Death. You see, I just fall into it. I was listening to Made in Japan. And I was cooking, so I was like, okay, something else is going to last for a while. So I pulled out this one. I guess I'm sort of describing a session I had over this week if I was cooking. It's kind of funny, but what the hell, man? It's real life. This is kind of another one of those. I think the performances on this are pretty hot. And overall, this is a good record, but I kind of think some of the song choices are a little bit questionable. I mean, Hound Dog and Long Tall Sally are big obvious ones. But like that Japanese one too, I mean, I can get there that sort of, connecting with the local scene or whatever, like being respectful to the people whose country you're in touring or whatever. But I don't know, I just don't think it's all that great. And some of these other ones too, I don't know, it's a really good record. But like, in sort of the Scorpions versus UFO sort of face-off, I really think Strangers in the Night beats it pretty easily. I've listened to both these lately, man. They're really good. And in fact, I went through and pulled out a bunch of the individual records, so I played this one a few times. Lights Out. There's some great deep cuts on these records too, man. I'm usually pretty hostile to covers, but they do a really nice version of Alone Again or by Love. Like Just Another Suicide. I don't know if that song gets a whole lot of play, but that's just it's easily as good as Too Hot to Handle. It's probably as good as Lights Out, Really solid UFO record, man. Got this one sitting here. Uriah Heep. Oh shit, it's the rest of my room because the mirror still works. Yeah, I mean, I sort of jokingly say this is my favorite Uriah Heep album because it's the one where they sound the most like Deep Purple. But it's kind of true. But I have been listening to Demons and Wizards a little bit more lately. Which is right there. There's actually a German press I got for some reason. I don't know, like most of the American pressings, there's like a second page in there in the gatefold, but this is just a regular gatefold. But then you get those cool looking labels. By the way, it's probably obvious I'm not sampling any of these because they're on big labels and shit, but Yeah, if I'm going to get a copyright claim on my thing and someone's going to try and make money off it, I'd rather Saracen get the money than Island, you know? Wherever the hell Saracen are these days. I hope they're doing well. I think they're from Perth, actually. If I'm not mistaken, Chris Rankin from Chris Rankin's Music Crush, who hopefully will be uploading it more soon. Yeah, he was telling me the trilogy was from Perth. Apparently it's like they're like local heroes, sort of, more or less. It's kind of a funny thing, but... Yeah, here's another Scorpions one I probably show off just because. What a cover, man. And that back photo is pretty fantastic, too. You know, I always like to talk about lines that I think are particularly memorable by non-native English speakers. Like, this got thrown back at me. I was on the Grown Man Record Night chat last week, and I think it was Nebulous Prowlers said, some of the lyrics came up, and he said, icicle brains, bicycle chains. And I was like, oh, fuck yeah. From the song Breaker by Accept, right? But that's so fucking funny. But, you know what I think is pretty close on that is on Steam Rock Fever by Scorpions, that chorus. Steam Rock Fever, screaming rock believers. Steam Rock Fever in LA. It's just perfect. Alright, so what are we going to listen to next? How about a little bit of Neon Cross? Actually, you know, so I'll bet that'll get me a copyright thing. My intuition's telling me to stay away from that one. Let's listen to Metal Sword. How about that? Including the super hit Disco Is Fuck. I can say from experience that was not unintentional. That was definitely intentional. Because I can pretty much guarantee you that every single German knows what the word fuck means. And probably all of them also would know how to use it as a part of speech. So, just so we're clear about that. You know, the language barrier is a real thing. But when Germans at least do, you know, funny and entertaining things with the English language, it's not because I'm misusing the word fuck. This is another record, actually, sort of in the category of the ones I've plugged from time to time. This one got recommended to me really strongly, I think by Jurgen, actually. And, I mean, as far as the cover goes, I mean, it's all there. Look at that. I mean, Jesus Christ. So it's one of those where I figure if I only like it and don't love it, that's probably just me. So I'm going to keep giving it more and more chances. You know, it's funny, I feel like I'm probably not much of a critic because I always like talk about, you know, why records are good, but I almost feel like the quest is to like find out what's good in a record, you know what I mean? Which is why the shit that turns me off tends to, you know, the shit that I just don't like at all, the shit that just seems cynical or just like contrived, you know? Like Steely Dan, you know what I mean? Like 80s Chicago shit, that sort of thing. It just feels like it doesn't exist for any like. It doesn't exist for any but the most superficial of reasons. So I just don't want to bother with it, you know. Anyway, let's look at some more shit from the obvious section because there's a lot more here. I mean, shit, this is an obvious one. I just played this one. I just bought this one last weekend. I just felt like feeling a little bit of free, you know. I don't think it's a great record, but I think it's a good record. You know, it's probably as good as a mid-level Rory Gallagher record. And, you know, sometimes that's what I want to hear. You know, I haven't decided yet though if it's going to go in the obvious section or in the shitty record section. You know, the shitty record section. In fairness, though, this is why this one kind of belongs in the shitty record section because I figured out that the shitty records that I have that I ever so often get a hankering for, like The Foreigner and shit like that. What that really is that I feel like listening to the music in a dive bar jukebox. That's what that section really is. So I have the Sticks over there, the fucking Foreigner, the Kansas is over there. And I think Free would probably fit right in. So it's probably going to go on the shitty record section, but it's going to do it with a bit of love. Or at least a little like, you know? It's more UFO, of course. More Deep Purple. There's a pretty good comp, actually. There are a ton of Deep Purple comps, obviously. But this one's pretty good as far as like good song selection and, you know, B-sides and that are kind of cool in that. I don't know if you really need this if you have all the albums, but, you know, I was a pretty big fanatic. Yeah, after listening to Tokyo Tapes, by the way, I realized the Scorpions record I really wanted to hear was this one. This is one of my favorites. I think this one and Trance are my favorites, but it's hard because I really like Taken by Force too. I'm going to listen to this one too, you know. Actually, it's a tie between that one and No Heavy Petting for my favorite UFO record. It kind of depends on when you catch me. Yeah, but here's another one, man. It's been a while since I listened to Alice Cooper. You know, Alice Cooper, it's an insane career because it's so long, Alice's career, right? I think Alice Cooper made 2 records that were like great. This one and Killer, I think, are great records. I think there were some other very good records, like $1 Billion Babies, and that's borderline great even. Welcome to My Nightmare. And I don't know, I mean, I have a soft spot for Raise Your Fist and Yell because that was when I discovered him, was right around that time. That's a tour I saw him on, actually. It's funny how when I saw him in 1988, he was already kind of over the hill. But he's still touring now. Anyway, and then he did a ton of just crap records, like From the Inside or Alice Cooper Goes to Hell. And I have some of these records, and I play them, right? But this is where I get off saying shit like, you know, who says you have to like all your records? You know what I mean? It's like, so there's a place for those. I just regave Flush the Fashion another chance not too long ago with, because Eric Bauer was really into at least one song off that. You know, it's a totally listenable record, but there's no fucking way I'd call that thing good, you know? So Alice has had this long career with like just bad record after bad record after bad record. And by the way, his first 2, because sometimes, the early shit's great. Like the first 2 Earth, Wind and Fire records are fantastic, you know what I mean? The Columbia shit was still good, but those 2 for Warner, godly, you know what I mean? That's not what Alice Cooper did when he was on Frank Zappa's label with, you know, Easy Action and Pretty's For You. This record just is kind of like a little muddly and kind of sort of hippie-ish, but like from someone who doesn't really understand hippies, but isn't just like making an exploitation record either, you know what I mean? They're a little off kilter in that, and they kind of have some of that weirdness and occasionally a little flower power vibe, but for the most part, they're just, for the most part, I just wish the songs were better. I could handle everything else if the songs were better. Anyway, this record I think is truly great. And, you know, back in the 90s, people didn't know about these fucking covers. So every time I saw them with a thumb, I'd buy it, you know? So there are a couple different versions, actually. So, in case you don't know, this is the thumb cover. And this is the earliest one. I don't know if I can do this. It's like a special treat for the people who hung in there for 23 minutes. It has a straight records in there, so, you know, Zappa's label. And there it is, the straight logo. So anyway, this is the original. There's also a version of the thumb cover that had that little white thing on it that said, including their hit, I'm 18. Oh, fuck it, hang on a second. Since this has become a little like Alice Cooper education. Besides, watering off your camera is my signature move, right? Alright, so this is a later version. It's on the other side. Also thumb cover still, but it says including their hit I'm 18. And then after this one, they took the thumb, they like did the thing where they covered up his arms so the thumb wouldn't be there. And that's how all the rest of them were. Although I heard there's like a recent reissue where they're restoring the thumb cover, which seems kind of hilarious to me. But yeah, you know, I tend to say that people romanticize the 90s a little bit, the record stores, because metal was still just as hard to find then. Even if you didn't pay as much for it when you did find it, you know, it was still hard to find. But there were some things like, just like every so often you come across a thumb cover because the fucking record store owner wasn't interested enough. You know, or it didn't occur to them to care, which I suppose is fair, you know what I mean? It's not like I would just, I mean, I could just Google Blue Oyster Cult Live 83, Buck Dharma's thumb, and see what happens, you know what I mean? It's like, what are my odds of a hit? I could do it with every, like, little detail on every record cover, so. Just to cut the record storage, it'll slack right after I shit on them. Anyway, I love that Alice Cooper record. That's the takeaway here. All this other shit, all these other stories. Love It to Death is a great record, and Killer is a great record. But that guy, like, made a career of making shitty records and just, like, I don't know, managed to skate by on people's goodwill or something. Yeah, that's about most of what I got to show here today, I think. I feel like I'm forgetting one. Yeah, not really. I mean this one, but this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, you know. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about all I got. So thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for watching. I'm going to find one more to show just because. I already threatened you with the Neon Cross, but yeah, this is one of the ones that I was going to sort of break it up a little bit, though. I don't listen to this kind of shit a whole ton. Like after, actually, you know something? I've been on a mini April Wine kick. I got a couple more of their records from about the same era as the one that I showed last time, kind of to my embarrassment. But like, I mean, shit. Yeah, I got this one, First Glance. It's not like these things cost anything, you know? And then Harder, Faster. And I'm not buying more April Wine. It's weird because, like, I've now given myself over to the unholy trinity of Canadian, like the bands that make Canadian, that give Canadian rock a bad reputation are basically April Wine, Helix, and Triumph, right? And I really like the first Triumph record. Like, no shit, from '76. It's like, It's like an early Queen record with more balls and less control. And you know, Allied Forces, I can listen to that one, doesn't bother me. But Helix, I'm not a big fan of, right? But I like, I mean, I've at least one of their early records is really good. Anyway, all this by way of saying, I've been listening to a lot more April Wine than is probably healthy for a man my age. So I've been sort of like sticking shit like this in the middle, just sort of break things up a little bit, you know? This Niflheim is a pretty recent reissue, by the way. If you're like interested, like grab it while you still can, because I don't know how many of these they made. Yeah, it says 400, but that thing's been out of print since like the early 90s, you know? Oh yeah, here's another one. I just listened to this one earlier today. Once Upon the Cross. Such a great record, this one, man. Yeah. So what can I say, man? I can tape some April Wine, but I need a little more than just salt to season it with, if you know what I'm saying. Okay. All right. Well, that's it. I hope you like Metal Sword and Saracen. And yeah, maybe some more obvious shit next time. We'll see, man. Who the fuck knows? Thanks for watching. Actually, I think the next time I'm going to do another 10 all-time perfect, like, metal classics. I did that once before. That was a fun video to make, so I've been trying to put together another 10. So that's probably what you're going to see next. Little deep tease there, right? All right, thanks for watching.